Okay, at this point, I'm basically just filling in the form. This part was really hard for me because I wasn't sure how dark. I used a reference, and so I now like kind of start doing the eye and the nose and trying to get that, really emphasize the forms. And at this point, I realize I need to start adding the warm tones and that it's really cold. And so I begin, with the eyelid and then just adding those warm tones everywhere. Sorry, I'm trying to think. And then I add a lot of blues, and then I do the lighting, and I feel like the nose is complete at this point. And I struggle with the chin a lot here, and I kind of finish the cold part of the face, and this is when I actually do the eyes and kind of get that feeling there. It's important to remember that like eyes aren't true white, and it actually makes them feel more lifelike when they aren't. I use the dark. It was kind of too dark in the eyelid, and I kind of fixed that up a little bit later. And I just kind of build and trying to add those, add more darks and lights and things like that, and make the color more expressive. And now I used a filter there so that I could see. I was trying to figure out what filter I could use to change the, so I could see the value. And I also made it warmer. I now do the lips, and I struggled a lot with this. I had to redo them several times because they felt too big. I ended up making them quite a bit smaller and making the chin a lot less pronounced in its separation. You can see it, that's where I made it smaller. And let's see. I then work on the nose a bit, and this is where I change the color and trying to make the colors better and stand out more and feel more, I don't know, alive. I did the ear there. And this is now where I kind of finalized the lips. I'm not entirely happy with the result of the lips. I probably should have worked on them more, but I'm still happy with the overall result. It was really hard to get my brush is very thick, so it was really hard to get the details there. This is when I start trying to figure out hair. Hair has never been my strong suit, and I haven't really figured out how to do it until quite recently. Right now I was just trying to figure out the form, trying to figure out how it looked, and I considered doing, blue hair. And that ended up quite working for me, but it did make me realize that I wanted kind of curly hair. And I also realized how the hair was standing up too much. And I also, I tried here and I kept, moving it too high, and it just wasn't working for me. You can also see I haven't added the hat yet that you may have seen at the beginning. Just because this piece was kind of an accident. I just did it as a study, and then I liked the outcome and kept working. And I made it more warm here, but I believe I make it less warm later. I might regret this a little bit, but I feel like it makes sense. Now I kind of realize that this needs a background, something to make it kind of pop, make the color, make it feel strong. And I wanted to make the background something that wouldn't distract. And so I basically did the base background, and now I try to figure out the hair, and this is when I decide that I need a hat. And I add the hat and try to figure out the hair. It ended up getting more curly in the end, I feel like. But mostly now I just work on the hat. It was really hard for me. I ended up having to use a little bit of a reference just to see, but I ended up not really using that reference at all because I feel like it was going to be too distracting and really hard. And so I ended up giving up on adding that type of texture. I wanted it to be kind of more of a felt hat. And this is when I add the ribbon. I wanted to make sure it was slightly see-through, and I also realized the way it was laying on the hat wasn't quite natural, and I ended up fixing that up quite a bit later. I added the ribbon, and you can kind of see where I fixed the bow on the hat. I actually quite liked the inside of the hat at this point, but I don't know if I kept it that way. So I fixed the ribbon finally that was driving me nuts. And I'm now kind of adding lighting, trying to show that it's see-through. Oh, and here's when I start adding lighting to the hat itself. I was looking at kind of a lot of different references to kind of see the way, and I tried to actually use a textured brush, but I didn't end up liking how it looked, and didn't like the way it felt. I kind of have decided I'm not going to really use textured brushes too much, other than like variations of the one I'm using for different like types of paint. I'm using brushes by Cynic's Design, by the way. He has some great free brushes that are amazing for painting. This is when I finally decide to do the hair, and I ended up really liking the dark color. And I try to make it like curly, and I wanted it to lay on the face. So I ended up kind of making a little bit of a curl there so that it looked a little bit more natural. I don't know if that's how it came off. And then I started adding lighting to the hair. I wanted some lighting, but I also wanted it to come across like, but a lot of it's in shadow. I used some of that red to reflect the reds that are in the face, but I ended up making the hair really blonde, and I feel like it very much complements the blonde that's in the face. I then start working on the darker parts, and yeah, we are almost done here. We have just a little bit longer. You can see me fixing the hat and removing that texture, and just kind of trying to figure it out. And then I see it now. I had to remove a layer that had some of my fixes for the background, and I ended up fixing that later. Right now, I'm working on the shoulders. I wanted to come across some of the light, but I also diluted it a little bit so that it wouldn't be too distracting. You'll see that I changed some of the like the collarbone so that it wouldn't be as distracting. I didn't focus on this area as much or take nearly as much time just because I didn't